Good morning, everyone. Joel Vasquez. I'm part of Software One marketing team. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar session, Security Protocols on Teams, with our expert, Ruben Vargas. If you have any questions, please share them on the chat. Before kicking off the session, I would like to invite you all to our technology and business blog, where you will find articles on recommendations or services and trends in technology. I will be sharing the link on the chat briefly. Also, I would like to invite you all to our social media channels, where you can find us as Software One and Software One West Indies in Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. At the end of the session, we will be sending a short survey. For us, it's extremely important to know your feedback to continuously improve in this practice. Thank you. Ruben?
Okay. Thank you, Joel, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Morning in some time zones over there, and good afternoon in some others. As Joel mentioned, today's session is going to be related with Microsoft Teams security and the way that we at Software One know that everything works from Microsoft side, and a few things that is going to be important to take in considerations. That's part of what we are going to be working with. Firstly, I want to start with the core values from our company. That is going to be these 7 core values at the moment. One of the main focus that we have at Software One is going to be customer focus. We want you to know how the technology works. We want to help you enable to work with technology like Microsoft 365 or Office 365, if you're not familiar with the first one. And the idea here is these values that we have in our company, as you can see, are values that represent internally employees and as well you as customer and how we can help you. This is going to be the agenda of what we are going to be seeing today in the presentation. It's going to be a little bit about what is Microsoft. For those of you, you already have seen what is Microsoft, but I want just to clarify the main point over there, how it works, the flow of the services, how they work internally from the perspective of Microsoft, and why that is going to be important. As well, identity, that is part of security as well. We have a specific part over there, and compliance. All of this is going to be making how Microsoft provides security for you out of the box and how we can work with it. Okay, it's going to be important during the session before I move on with the content. If you have any questions, you can just raise your hand. Well, you can just try over there in the chat. We have Joel as well, and I'm going to be opening a few space during the presentation for questions that you may have. If I have the information, I'm going to be answering right away. If not, we are going to take back that and we can answer that later on, okay? So what is Microsoft Teams so far? Why is this technology that is changing so far in this situation that we are living globally? That is going to be the situation of COVID, and as well how it can be impacting the company as well. The first one, and why many of you are considering or already are using Microsoft Teams, is going to be that Microsoft Teams so far is a hub of teamwork, or in this case, collaboration, and it's an easy service so far to enable and put it to work. And that's going to be the easy part for a technology perspective. In why you are here in the session, I suppose, and I know is going to be by the part of security and compliance. How secure is Microsoft? More related with the competitor that we have in the market, as Zoom. In this case, that Zoom have presented some security challenges so far, and Microsoft by design already covered most of those design issues that those kind of services that are free so far cannot be able to cover by the way they work. So another part of important of Microsoft Teams is all is integrated by design. You can connect everything in the perspective of Office 365 or Microsoft 365. But as well, you can connect external services to Microsoft Teams. And that's as well an important point for security and compliance that we're going to be seeing later on. And that's something that you need to consider over the process. Security fixtures, well, Microsoft by design is going to be secure, and that's something that I'm going to show you later as well. But it's important that the 4 point here, it is a shared responsibility. This is important because we have the tools in Microsoft Teams at the end, or in this case, Office or Microsoft 365. We have the tools, we have the options to work with those tools and to secure and be compliant with the solutions that we enable for our end users internally in the company. But that's something that Microsoft is not going to be working to enable for you. They are not going to tailor that for your company. That's something that you need to consider, you need to work with. If you have knowledge, you can do it yourself. If not, well, in that case, we as a Software One can help you over that process as well, okay? So how it works, I'm going to do a little zoom here. Just a second, if I found my zoom option. Well, seems I do not have my zoom. Can any confirm from your side if you are able to see all the flow that I'm showing you so far in the presentation?
Fluent? Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's perfect.
The image that you have on your that says how it works.
Yeah. Okay. If you can see the flow, that's perfect. My idea here, I don't know why I lose my zoom option over there, but the idea here with this is to show you how Microsoft Teams works so far. As I mentioned at the beginning, Microsoft is a hub at the end, and this hub is not going to be that separate service from Microsoft. At the end, Microsoft is just pulling in different services like SharePoint, like OneDrive in this case, another service like Office 365 groups. They're pulling that, putting in Microsoft Teams, and that is going to be working as a wall solution for the end user. It's going to be a seamless experience for them. But at that point is where, as technology part, we need to consider how we want to enable the service for that end user and how we want to manage everything. Why that is important? As you can see, we are going to have different parts here that is going to be working. In this case, Microsoft have two kind of files to be working with. One is going to be personal files, in this case, that you can upload, and that upload is going to be directly redirect directly to OneDrive from that end user that is uploading that information, for example, in a private chat with another person. And that is going to be one of the first stop points for files, and where we need to consider how we are going to be securing that information. Okay. The second stop for files is going to be the files that is working from a team. So in this case, a site, or well, in this case, a channel where you're working, you're putting files over there. That file, so those files is going to be stored in SharePoint. That is going to be a specific SharePoint created for the group or the channel that you create in Microsoft Teams. And you need as well to set up or define how would you want to secure the files that are working from SharePoint side, okay? Moving on, chats. Chats is going to be something that you are not going to see where it's stored, because that is going to be at the end in the back end. It's going to be stored in Exchange so far, in Exchange Online in this case. And the way that you can go and pull back those chats in case it's going to be using the solutions from Microsoft called eDiscovery. And that is going to be more for legal and compliance stuff that you can work and use those kinds of things. And well, in some cases, well, you can enable as well as policies for language in case, for example, you want to avoid a specific language in the chats. You can just as well monitor that and have that kind of information. Meetings in this case is going to be related directly with Exchange Online, and we have then meeting recordings. Meeting recordings is going directly with Microsoft Stream service, and for Microsoft Stream services, over there you as well can set up how you want to enable the users to, for example, share the external recordings or just keep that for the internal company usage. Okay, that is going to be important as well. Moving back and just going back a little bit for the files stuff, remember the OneDrive, you can enable that to be working with external users or just internal users in the company. What is going to be important is keep in mind at the end, as I mentioned at the beginning, Microsoft Teams is ready to use solution from Microsoft perspective. They just enable few default security stuff and they keep it most of them open at the beginning. So if you enable Microsoft Teams so far in your company, you haven't set up anything. So far you have a lot of open doors for data loss, for example, confidential information that can be going out. But as well, what you need to consider is the end user experience. If you go and block everything, just keep in mind, if you already have open, then end user is going to be complaining. And you need to consider as well the relation that you have with the external company. So in that point is where you need to start figuring out what is going to be the strategy that you want to work internally in your company for security and compliance regarding data and usage of the services. Okay. So just we have keeping in Microsoft Teams is part of how it works. Now moving on how Microsoft have created and enabled their services. Microsoft created Microsoft Teams, and not just Microsoft Teams, everything in Office 365, Microsoft 365, and other services for Microsoft. They created from a trustworthy computer security development life cycle. At the end, this is going to be, for example, the standard security rules that they follow internally in their company, in the policies that Microsoft follow up to create any services. The idea here from Microsoft is that everything that they are going to be providing to an end user, to in this case the customer, is going to be something that they already prove and they already try to figure out everything that is possible from their side. In a security perspective. So it's a service that is already, for example, let's say secure around it. What is important, and this is something that Microsoft says in that process, is we try our best with our security lifecycle development, and you can find information about how that works in Microsoft official documentation and official pages. Is that they cannot say that everything is going to be secure always. Why? Because they are not able to identify things in security parts that are evolving daily by day. Okay. In that part is how Microsoft works. In this image that you have seen so far in the presentation is the flow that Microsoft work with Exchange and SharePoint. And as you can see here, as I mentioned at the beginning, Microsoft enabled everything to work out of the box. Emails, SharePoint files, group chats, everything is going to be over there. And at the end, Microsoft Word is going to be providing to you its tools like information protection tools like e-discovery, legal, hold, compliance. The options that you are seeing over there, those are those settings that you need to go back, think about it, review it. If you know how to work with it, start working with it. And if not, look for a partner like us, and we can help you build everything over there from a governance perspective for M365 or Office 365. So you are secure, you know what is going to be happening, you know how you are managing everything regarding information of the company, and you know as well that you can enable with the easy mind the service for the end users, and end users as well can use those fixtures that you are providing for the company in collaboration. So this is the first part of how Microsoft works in the perspective of emails and SharePoint. Then we have the other part that is important and why we're thinking as well on Microsoft Teams that is going to be calls, VoIP calls in this case, or you can integrate as well that with PBX. That depends on the scenario you have. And in this case as well, Microsoft enabled some security information that you can use. And you may ask yourselves, why security in the VoIP perspective or in the calls? In this case, what you're going to be using for Microsoft tools is in some calls, what you want to control is which person can join the meetings that are going to be set up. And as well, you want to control, for example, if you have different departments, and in some case, those departments cannot be sharing information between them, You want to control that they are not going to be able to chat between them, but as well, they are not going to be able to establish a call between them, so they cannot share information over there about the company. That's another part that you can work with security perspective. So far, what I have presented to you, as you can see, are the different ways that Microsoft works in the security perspective and how they design the service. And as well, the security part that you need to consider so far. This is a high level. This is something that I want to mention at this point, is the high level of everything. If we go deeply, I think it's not going to be enough one day to be speaking about it. So the idea here is you understand these topics and you understand why it's important to take into consideration all this information. Now, I'm going to move to a second part of the presentation. This is going to be more related, a little bit deep from Microsoft perspective on how they attack and how they solve and protect you from some common security scenarios in the market. So Microsoft has established some mitigation mechanisms internally. That's part as well from the development side life cycle that they have. And they work everything in a security perspective for you. I meaning from the communication perspective, everything that is going to be transmitted to Microsoft and the way the communications go for chats and as well for calls, all of that is going to be secure by Microsoft. Some of the ways that, for example, they solve some of the common thread that we have in the market. You can see it over there in the presentation. One is going to be compromised key attack. The way that Microsoft managed the PKI TLS is that they use meta encryption between the TLS connection that they have in every connection so far. As well, the denial of attack of services, you do not need to be worried about that. Microsoft manage everything from their perspective, from the infrastructure, and they avoid the denial of service of Microsoft Teams in this case. This is something, and I want to clarify, this is something since the beginning that Microsoft have worked. This is not something new that they created for the situation we have. This is part of the development life cycle that they have since the beginning. What is important as well, Microsoft keep rolling out security solutions that is going to be for customer usage or internally for Microsoft to protect you as a customer using their services. Another way is that Microsoft, for example, avoid attack in this case from a malicious attack, a hacker in this case, to intercept the connections and the communication that they have between the servers. In this case, they use MTLS from the TSL communication in server communication. Remember that at the end, when we are going to be using Office 365, even as we see it as cloud, Microsoft manage everything at the back end. In this case, they manage the SharePoint, they manage the Exchange, they manage the Active Directory for all the communications. They are going to be managing Microsoft Teams as well. And all those communications in that back end is going to be secured by TLS in those two kind of ways. Someone is requesting control. I cannot provide control so far. So Christopher, maybe in another session I'm going to provide you, but not now. So going back with the presentation here is remember that at the end, Microsoft is securing that infrastructure from their site and from the security part that they can work. In this case, these three parts that I'm showing so far, there are another three ones as well that I'm going to show you here. The way that they as well try to avoid spoofing in this case is as well using TLS. As you can see, TLS is a way that Microsoft to secure everything, and is a way that normally in the companies we use as well to be working for servers. Man in the middle attack, they work with that, avoiding that to be impacting you as an end user. And as well, they use SRTP in conjunction with security signal for protection on the transmission that you are using, and virus and worms directly attacking their infrastructure is going to be protecting from Microsoft scenario. So these three parts that I have shown you so far are the most common scenarios of Microsoft try to avoid in the mitigation mechanisms that they have so far. They have more mechanisms, they have more security parts. These are the parts that they have more polished so far. And if we want to know a little bit more as well, remember that Microsoft complied with security standards globally and locally in some countries as well. So that's as well the way that Microsoft secure you and provide you the confidence that when you work with Microsoft Teams, for example, you are going to be secure from the infrastructure perspective, in this case, the service that they provide to you. But at that point, the shared responsibility is important. Why? Because they protect you until that point. And from that point and go on, it's going to be your responsibility to set up the way that you want to protect yourself. Remember, and I have seen this in different scenarios from customer, they just enabled the service. They didn't made any personalized setup of the service that they have over there. And at the end, they present some security concerns and compliance concerns because they thought that Microsoft was doing everything for them. In this case, nor Microsoft, nor a partner that is going to provide you the security, the service or the licensing in this case, is going to be providing that part for you. Each of your companies have their own scenarios, their own policies, culture internally, and we need to consider all of that when we build something like this. So at this point, I don't know if any of you have any questions so far. I haven't seen the chat as well. I don't know. I do not know if we have any question over there. Joel?
No, we don't have any question. Only that Jason wants to know if you can share the presentation after the session.
Yes, of course. I can share the presentation without problem. Okay. So moving on, now I'm going to be moving a little bit about identity parts, and this is as well. And I'm going to say this is the main base that you need to think before working with Microsoft Teams. If you are already in Microsoft Teams, I hope you already have some consideration in this part, and it's going to be Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory, well, it's going to be the Active Directory. It's going to be the way that we manage the identity in the service. This is going to be impacting directly to Microsoft Teams. As I mentioned at the beginning, remember, Teams is just a hub. It's going to be, for example, a way to connect all those services, but all of those services, SharePoint, Exchange, OneDrive in this case, and the calling system, all is going to be related with Azure Active Directory. So it's important for you to understand the way that you're going to be managing the identity in your services. The first line is going to be Azure Active Directory to be working with. In this case, Microsoft work with Azure Active Directory with something they call modern authentication. Modern authentication use OAuth 2.0 for client to server communication. And as well, this is the way that Microsoft move most of their services in the cloud to be working so far. In this way, you are going to be enabling later on, for example, multi-factor authentication. You are going to have that option to be working with. And there are other services like conditional access that you can work with. But at this point, I do not want to lose you from the focus. From Active Directory perspective, in this case, you can do a lot of things in Microsoft 365 or Office 365. And that those things or those fixtures that you can use over there is going to be related with the licensing services that you acquire. And this is an important part as well. I'm going to mention everything is important, as you see, but it's important that you see all the connection that we have here. Why is important? Because if you acquire, for example, licensing in E1, or in this case, well, yes, in E1 of Office 365, you're going to receive Azure Active Directory in the most basic scenario from Microsoft side. You can do a lot more stuff like conditional access. You can establish different policies as well, but some of those fixtures is going to relate it with the Active Directory level that you have. Active Directory have a premium level that they call P1, in a P2. P2 level is going to be the maximum level that they have so far in Azure Active Directory, and it is going to be where you are going to have most of the features that you can work in conjunction with Azure Active Directory, Office 365, and at the end, Office 365 is going to impacting everything like Microsoft Teams. That is the topic that we're talking about today. Okay. So for the traffic perspective, the way that Microsoft work everything over there, they work with CRL distribution points. For some of you, to a little explanation over there in simple terms, the distribution point is going to be a shared location in the network, in this case, Microsoft, where they have the CRL in store and the certificates, and the way they do, they review each time with a root CA or a subordinate CA in the market, the certificate change is compliant, everything is working, is really authorized to working with. And in that point, Microsoft can say to you, every connection that we are doing is secure, every certificate is validated for us and for the root service that we have. And we know that we are providing, there is no attack, there is no one trying to do identity over that part, and you can be secure that you are accessing the right service in the website. Okay. As well, they use enhanced key usage in this case, and the idea is for server authentication at this point for them to working. Okay. We have seen this a lot. That is going to be the way that Microsoft manage each of the communication. There is going to be TLS and MTLS. And before speaking more about this part, most of you know about those security protocols so far, but what is going to be important is this part, the encryption that we have so far, and the way they use it, Microsoft for each of their services is going to be from this slide. As you can see, from server to server is going to be MTLS, and go on for client to server, media flow, audio and video, and signaling. As you can see, all of the parts of communications and showing anything or working with any of the solutions of Microsoft, in this case Teams, this as well applied to Teams, is going to be secured by Microsoft from their perspective in communications. Okay. Then we have the normal part that when we set up the service, if we have our security locally in the firewall part, and we secure the port range. This is going to be required for Microsoft to work, and it's going to be the red one. And we have some optional UDP and TCP ports that we can use as well. Microsoft says if you're going to be working with the ranges that is going to be different, and you're going to be using the optional parts, it can be a little impact in the server, in the services time response, but it's going to be minimal. It's going to be like 1 millisecond of impact in that part. Okay. So as I mentioned, identity is the secure base that we need to be developing at the beginning. We need to work with our Active Directory. We need to define how we want to manage the security from that part. We do not need to be worried that much for the encryption in the communication that is going to be done by Microsoft all the time. And we have the services, and each service can have granular setup in security and compliance as well. In some cases, you can have organization-wide for example, Office 365, and you can apply rules that apply to all the services that work in conjunction for Microsoft Teams. More related with Microsoft Teams so far, what Microsoft have enabled is 3 parts of security that works directly in Microsoft Teams, and is going to be more focused for that. Work as well for other solutions of Office 365, and it's going to be advanced threat protection, safe attachments, and they are going to be pulling one that is available for Exchange, that is safe links. And so far that is in preview. Remember that everything that is in preview, Microsoft is not going to provide any SLA, or they are not going to say everything works as it should be. they are going to be doing their best for the service to work, and you can enable that over there in the console of administration of Office 365 so far. So idea of safe links is going to be, as the name says, when anyone put a link over there in any of the chats in Microsoft Teams, that is going to be reviewed by Microsoft. And if they try to open that and it's a malicious site, that is going to be informed to the customer that please do not proceed at this point. Advanced threat protection is going to be more related with the services that we work around Teams, and it's going to be providing a layers of security over there, and safe attachments. In that case, is everything that you are going to be putting as well as a safe attachment. In this case, a document is going to be reviewed by Microsoft from OneDrive or from SharePoint, and they are going to tell the end user at some point if, for example, the file is malicious, and please go and delete that file. Okay. And then we have compliance. Compliance at the end is the things that we know so far: data loss prevention, e-discovery, and legal hold, and MDM, in this case for management mobility, that we can work with. Some of the security parts, as you can see, most of them is going to be managed by Microsoft. Other ones is going to be related with policies that you are going to be setting up. Those policies are going to be impacting security, and it's going to be impacting as well compliance. It's for that I keep these two topics in this presentation of Teams security protocol so far. As you have seen the presentation, the way that Microsoft works from the infrastructure is secure, and the other services that they provide is going to be the way for you to be more secure using the services so far. Here, some of the services that we have in compliance to be working with. I'm not going to be going deeply in this part because I know that the idea was for you to see how the security works from Microsoft perspective, and I'm trying to keep in that way. The main points, everything that you see so far in the presentation is important. Ones that you can have interest so far is the one called information barriers. But information barriers is a way for you internally in the company to do some divisions of departments or some divisions of, for example, companies as well. So you can establish that one division cannot talk with another division, or one company cannot talk with the other company for compliance or risk or anything that you have in the market, and that can be seen in the wrong way. Okay, to be working with. Then we have e-discovery. E-discovery is going to be important, and it's going to be a way for you to see and search over Microsoft Teams. In this case, that is a focus today, what is happening around the conversations, what is happening around the files and everything that is going to be shared in the services. So, so far, that was that I have for the presentation. I have a little bit more of slides. The slides that I'm going to be showing so far at this point is going to be from Microsoft and the way that they present the things that I have been showing so far to you. One of these is going to be the authentication. Microsoft recommends as a best practice to enable multi-factor authentication. The multi-factor authentication can be integrated from Microsoft side perspective, but as well, depending on the Azure Active Directory deployment that you have. Remember that I mentioned that there is going to be the base. You can integrate as well other services as hard tokens or certificates to be used in physical smart cards or virtual smart cards, or certificates in the computer of the end user to be working as an authentication method for them. Okay. Then we have the conditional access. The conditional access is going to be a way for you to establish policies. And for example, say that when an user is going to be accessing some services from a device or from a location that is not going to be allowed, you are going to be, for example, requiring that user to be using multi-factor authentication at that point. Or when they are going to be logging for a new device that is known for the company, you can work at that level of security for that services. And that's something that you can see here. this is going to be the conditional access panel over there in Azure Active Directory, where you can go and establish that part to be working with. This is a way that it start working with a managed services. For in this case, on managed services, what is going to be the windows that is going to present to the end user to be working at that point, and what is happening, why they need to consider that. Okay, this is another way. This is for locations, as I mentioned at the beginning. And we have a third one that I think is not here, that you can even establish uh, time schedules for the end user to be able to use the service. So you can establish that from 7 to 5 or to 6 p.m. that user are going to be able to use the services, but from that point and go on, they are not going to be able to log into the Microsoft or Office 365 services at that point. Okay, we have guest users. This is for Microsoft Teams. I have been keeping that part. From Microsoft Teams, we have to get users. In this case, you can invite someone externally, even with a personal email, to be joining a conversation, joining, in this case, well, a specific teams, and collaborate in that part. This is going to be more related with your company policies and how you want to establish that to be working. We have as well, this is just a button so far to enable or disable this part. And this applied to all the organization. Okay, so if you enable, it's going to be enabled for everyone. If you disable, it's going to be disabled for everyone. We have then federations. The idea of federation is this is something that is enabled by default. So for you to know, for those that already have the service. And the idea of federation is if you just have it enabled, it's going to let you speak with any organization that have Microsoft Teams, and you can communicate with those external companies. If you, for example, want to work just with the specific domains or specific companies in this case, you can just go and add that specific domain to the Microsoft Teams. And the way that is going to be working at that point that you add one company, that is going to be meaning for Microsoft Teams that the company can work only, can speak externally only with those users in that domain. Okay. So moving on, a little bit more related with Microsoft Teams and the way you can protect is going to be information protection. This is going to be related with that data loss prevention that you can just work over there. This is going to be by policies that you can work, and the idea is you can establish if you want to block, you want to just monitor, and later on you can go and do the changes that is going to be required for you and for your company. This is just an example of data loss prevention. In this case, end user tried to share some personal information, in this case, the social security number, and this was blocked by Microsoft at that point. Something, and this is not to leave a bad expectation as well, is that DLP of Microsoft work in a passive way. This means that when you send a message, so far, what Microsoft is going to be doing is they are going to be analyzing that, but that end user or the other user they are sending information is going to be able to see the message for a few seconds. And after a few seconds, Microsoft is going to be blocking that. Microsoft is trying to improve that so far as I know, and they want to have a little bit more control in that part. This is another way for data loss prevention to be working for that same user. They have the option to override the policy, and this is going to be based on your company policies. As you can see so far, there are the tools, there are the fixtures for you to be working and security information inside your company in Microsoft Teams as well. But what is going to be important is you as a company, you need to know or need to define how you are going to be securing that information and how you are going to be providing options for your end user or not providing any kind of options. This is a way for the second user that you are sending information that is going to appear the message that was blocked so far. Then we have discover and respond, and this is more related with the compliance part. And this apply for legal and as well for IT when IT want to do some research of what is happening around Microsoft Teams. You can do it with e-discovery in this case to be working. And here are some of the few numbers that so far have happened in the market and the way the e-discovery is helping them so far. So the idea is for you to collect information, content, review it, create new policies, for example, modify existing policies, and even for in this case legal situations, you can share, for example, even for audits, you can share some specific information with the external audit that is not going to be impacting that company at that point. That is going to be e-discovery. As you can see, discovery can work with Microsoft Teams. That is the topic of today. And Microsoft Hack extend this. Previously, they have it, and they are just improving the service of e-discovery for Microsoft Teams. This is like an example of how Microsoft Teams work. You need to select a specific group. And after you select a specific group, this is the team view, and this is the e-discovery view. That way that you can see how e-discovery shows the information that you are trying to search and find. And what you can do, for example, for those external audit that I mentioned, is going to be you can select a specific information and you can just block it with this solution that is called ARIAS reduction. And the idea is you're going to select just the information that you want to share with the audit or with the external company or the legal company of the situation that you have so far. That was e-discovery. Then we have data governance. At this point, what Microsoft provide as a data governance is they comply with regulation and policies as well, is a reduction of litigation security and help you know what is happening internally. As well, there is retention policies. This is going to be as well important for you to define how much information in Microsoft Teams you want to keep it. And if you do not want to keep it as well, you need to define that as a policy over there. Remember, at the end, you can enable for an end user for them to delete a message that they sent or modify it. But with these retention policies, what you establish is going to be the way that even though they do those changes or those deletions, that information is going to be available in e-discovery. So far, you can just establish a policies for 1 day. So after 1 day, you can just delete the information. And the idea for Microsoft is to help you avoid all of these points that you are seeing so far in the presentation, in this specific slide, is for you to detect different kind of situation in your company. Microsoft, as I mentioned, is going to be secure by design. They do their best. They design in the best way that they can so far to keep everything secure for you. They are going to inform you as well if anything happens, if any leak happens. So far, I haven't seen any of that from Microsoft Teams. And by the way that they work, those are going to be none or just a few ones, and they are going to be solved easily from Microsoft perspective and very fast. Then we have the information barriers that I mentioned before. The way that it works is, as I mentioned, you can just block specific departments or divisions or different companies to be talking between them. Even though, for example, if one third party or one specific party of the company can work with both, there is not going to be communication, even if that person that have communication with those sites try to pull them in a meeting, for example, or in a chat, that is going to be protected by Microsoft in information barriers. This is just an example where you look for a specific user, but you're not going to be able to find anything because it's blocked. And here is an example where the third party that have access to both groups try to add those two groups in one conversation, and what is going to happen is going to be blocked. And as you can see, Pradef in this case is going to be leaving out of the chat. As well happened with the meetings, as I mentioned before. And that was the idea. As well, this is extended for SharePoint and that information barriers that I mentioned so far to you. So just opening a space for questions. This was information that we have for you to present today from my side. I hope that even some of you may know some of the things that I present to you. I have presented at least one specific new information to you. If you have any questions, I think we have just a few minutes. Well, we have 50 minutes for questions. And if you have anything, I just open the space. I will be try to answer as far as I can. Anyone? There is chat questions. Let me go over there.
No, we don't have any questions on the chat, Ruben.
Okay, yes, I'm seeing here. Anyone want to open the mic? Any question? Did you like the presentation today? Oh, licensing questions. So it's going to be for Josep. What are the licensing issues for archiving? I'm going to say you right so far. It's not going to be the top of my mind, but let's go to Office 365. That can be found here, Office 365 features. Let me see if I can find that quickly for you. Feature suites. It's going to be this ones. Let me see. This one, service descriptions. And legal hold in this case, or archiving for Microsoft 365. Let me see where it is. Deletions. Where is e-discovery? Okay. Extensions. Joseph, here so far that is going to be related with e-discovery. In E1, I do not see it. That is going to be more related with E5. And that's so far for the retention. I think Microsoft as well is going to provide you a retention. You can enable that. It's not going to be that open. If I remember so far, Microsoft have a limit. You can have established like 30 days retention that you can keep information at that point. So, oh, by the way, as we have a few minutes here, let me see if I'm not pulled out. I just wanted to show you a little bit about the fixtures that I was speaking about. So here we have the security and compliance. Security and compliance is going to have in for you the data loss and prevention. It's going to have the threat management in policies. You can see the ATP safe links. You can see the ATP safe attachments. You can see another ones as well that you can work with. You have the e-discovery as well here. And the way that e-discovery works is, for example, here I just have one case, and the idea with the case is you can go over there and you can just start creating the queries that you want to go and look for so far. So for the question that you have, John, in this case, as I'm seeing so far, Microsoft have that, and that is going to be e-discovery. Is there a way I can, oh yeah, the security score. Let me just go back here. Let me just go and pull back my my password. Where I put that information is going to be here. Just a second. There we go. Oh. Maybe I did copy something that was strong over there. Oh, yes. So from the security score, Microsoft as well provide you a way to go internally and see, for example, what is going to be the secure, well, in this case, the score that the company have so far in the services. Let me go back a little bit. And security score, it was in this one. So security score is going to be this one. Security score at the end is a way that Microsoft enabled for each customer in Office 365. You're going to be seeing this. Well, as you can see, it appears as a preview here, but is because I'm using a demo tenant so far, so they put it the latest here. The idea of security score for you as a company is you can go over there and you can see what are going to be the recommendations that Microsoft tell you you need to enable, for example, protection for authenticators, what is going to be the impact if you establish that policy to be working with. And the idea here is Microsoft for you to know the way that you can be enabling some services. What is going to be important with security score, because this have happened before with customer from our sites, is security score is going to be an open, for example, recommendation for you. They are not going to be considering the level of subscription that you have so far. They're just going to provide you all the recommendation and improvement actions in this case that you can establish. And the idea here is for you to go and review if you have the licensing capabilities to enable these kind of solutions. Well, fixtures in this case. So that was for Daniel. Another question for Jason here. When a guest team member tries to send a file to another team member, the ATP fixtures will be scanning the file before it is uploaded from the guest and when it is received by the recipient. Yes, in that case, the way the ATP is going to be working is each time that anyone is going to try to put a file in this case, a private chat or in a Teams, Microsoft is going to be scanning that file and is going to be providing you an alert if that file contains any malicious intent inside, for example, a script or anything over there. Okay, that applies for, yes, it's going to be applying both mobile and PC. Why? Remember, if we go a little bit to the presentation, and let me try to find where is my presentation again. I'm going to go back to the one of the beginning files that we have here, the slides, and it's going to be this one. What is going to happen in that case, Jason, sorry, I think it was Jason, your name, is when you put a file, yes, Jason, when you put a file in any of the services of Microsoft Teams, they are going to be reviewing that before touching or going to be over there in OneDrive or in SharePoint. And the way the ATP work is going to be working for those two technologies as well. So even though you are in a mobile, they are going to present you alert because Microsoft detected, for example, something malicious in that file. Any other question? No problem. So I'm going to mention something as well here at this point. If you have any kind of questions regarding the licensing that you have so far, licensing level and fixtures, and you want to know a little bit more, just let us know as well. I think it's going to be a survey later on. Let us know over there. Let us know as well if, for example, you need help or you need guidance. You want to know how well you are so far in the implementation that you have in Microsoft Teams, in the policies, in the security part. And we can help you over there, have some conversation, define if, for example, you need to be doing more work or if you are going in the right path so far. Come on, guys, we have 7 minutes. One, two more questions. I see that everything was clear as a water. Well, I'm not seeing anywhere. No one wants to open the mic, so don't be shy. But as well as I mentioned, I think it's going to be really a survey later on. I thank you everyone to be in the session, to participate, to those that made the questions. If you have any kind really of issue or you have some concerns, let us know. We have complete and have done a lot of projects regarding migrations, regarding governance in Microsoft 365, in Office 365. We can help you as well with the licensing part. The idea here is, as I mentioned at the beginning, we as Software One do not want to just be a partner that put the licensing of the services description. We want to enable you in the right way to be working with Microsoft services, in this case, Microsoft Teams, and the related services around it, and you to feel confident that you can enable all these amazing features that Microsoft Teams have for collaborations, but at the end, you be at easy and easy in your mind that you're enabling something that is secure and you are not going to be harming the business so far. Joel, I don't know if you have anything from your side. And
No, I think that will be all. Ruben, thank you so much for your time today. If you have any question, please send us an email and we'll gladly help you. Also, I want to remind everybody to follow us on our social media channels. You can find us as Software One and Software One West Indies in Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also, you will be receiving a short survey. For us, it's extremely important to know your feedback to continuously improve in this practice. Thank you so much for your time today.